Hello there! In this video, we'll have a little bit of a theoretical overview and some practical tutorial parts as well. Oversimplifying, but an app does three tasks. First of all, it shows information to the user. The app does that via view components, paragraphs, images, containers, and so on. Next step, it takes information from the user via interaction. This can be an input field, a drop-down, or even a single tap event on a button. Finally, the app does something with the information it received and the information it has and does some sort of computing with that. The information that we have in Appgyver can be categorized into three major categories. App variables, which are available during the full lifetime of the app. This means that a user hard closes an app by deleting it from the recent apps stack. The app variables will be cleared as well. Page variables, which are available only on the specific page until the page is on the user's screen. Let's also call this that the page is in focus. Then we have data variables, which are almost the same as page variables, but they have a specific schema that is based on the data resource configuration, which we haven't talked about yet and will not talk about in this video. The final category is the others. These will be useful mostly for advanced use cases where there are complex components, collapsible grouping lists, or other things like those. In our reservation form, we need the following information about the reservation, right? Each of these pieces of information have their own type, because every variable or property has a type. These are pretty straightforward, right? But there is one interesting concept to understand. Each of these separate pieces of information is all connected to one major topic, or we can call that an object. An object is also a type of information. One object has different properties that have their names, types, and values. So this was the heavy part, but very important to understand. Now let's dive into how it is done in Composer. We will create an app variable in the variables view of the Composer. So far, we have no variables, so let's add an app variable. Let's call it new reservation. As I mentioned earlier, we have to change the type of it to object with properties. We have no ID for it. We don't need that now, so let's remove that. Now let me just quickly add all the properties and their names to the app variable. As the next step, we have to set the types of the properties. Not many will change here, but they have to be changed. I choose a list of text and list of numbers, as one user can select multiple services and time slots, so we have to deal with that too. That is it. We now have access to our app variable on all of our pages. Let's then bind the variable to our input fields. In the Value Binding tab, we have different options. For now, we will need data and variables as we want to bind our new reservation name property to the input value. But in many cases, we need to use the formula type or even sometimes the component properties. Now for the services and date and time slots, now I just add a simple static value to show how the binding works on the tab event. In the next videos, we'll modify this a little bit as we will have dynamic dates and services, so stay tuned. To bind the variable's value to a tab event, you need to first select the component, which will be tabbed, then open the logic canvas at the bottom of the page. By default, you have the component tab event there. Now let's just drag a set app variable flow to the canvas and connect the two. In the Properties tab of the set app variable, select the New Reservation Objects Services property and add one item to the list. On the date selection, almost everything is the same except for the value that I will set. Now, I choose a formula that uses the current time as the value. If you know the formula that you want to use, simply type in and choose from the options. To test that we have the data in the variable, we will use an alert on the Submit tab event. I did leave out the time slot section so that the property will have a null value, but still, we can see that the reservation data is there for submission. In the next part, we'll create the dynamic date picking, services, and time slots. Until then, cheers!